Welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast by Third Wave. Today I am speaking with meditation teacher, healer, and visionary leader, Spring Washam.
If you think about the last few years, which have been very painful but very growth-oriented, just from the pandemic perspective, where we all had to look at ourselves and deal with ourselves, the two most popular healing modalities have been meditation-focused practices and then also the plant medicine. So these two together, consciously, is what excites me.
Welcome to the Psychedelic Podcast by Third Wave, audio mycelium connecting you to the luminaries and thought leaders of the psychedelic renaissance. We bring you illuminating conversations with scientists, therapists, entrepreneurs, coaches, doctors, and shamanic practitioners, exploring how we can best use psychedelic medicine to accelerate personal healing, peak performance, and collective transformation. Hey listeners, this is Paul F. Austin, founder and CEO at Third Wave, and welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast, where we explore how the safe and responsible use of psychedelic substances can catalyze both individual and collective transformation. How do Buddhist practitioners view the use of psychedelics? How can psychedelic experiences benefit a mindfulness practice and vice versa? And how can psychedelics step in where mindfulness falls short? These are some of the questions that we will explore in the podcast today with Spring Washam. Spring is a well-known teacher, healer, and visionary leader based in Oakland, California. We recorded this interview at the MAPS Conference, Psychedelic Science 2023. Spring and I met at Wisdom 2.0, which is a conference that happens every year in the Bay Area. We sat next to each other at lunch. Started to engage in conversation, and I came to realize that she runs and facilitates incredible ayahuasca retreats down in Costa Rica. And then we started talking about meditation and Dharma, and Spring has an incredibly important voice to bring to this conversation as an African-American woman, as a Buddhist teacher, and as an ayahuasca facilitator. So there's lots of angles that we'll explore in the conversation today. We talk about how Buddhist practitioners view psychedelics. We talk about Spring's early ayahuasca journeys and revelations, her lessons from Jack Kornfield, her mentor, his guidance and teachings. We talk about Spring's Lotus Vine Journeys, which are her ayahuasca retreats in Costa Rica, how psychedelics and Buddhism reconnect us to nature. And one of the most profound things we discussed were Spring's insights from her book, The Spirit of Harriet Tubman, Awakening from the Underground. Here's a quick bio on Spring, just so you have a little bit more context. Considered a pioneer in bringing mindfulness-based meditation to diverse communities, Spring Washam is a well-known teacher, healer, and visionary leader based in Oakland, California. She is the author of A Fierce Heart, Finding Strength, Courage, and Wisdom in Any Moment, and The Spirit of Harriet Tubman, Awakening from the Underground. Spring is one of the founding teachers at the East Bay Meditation Center, an organization that offers Buddhist teachings with attention to social action and multiculturalism. She is a member of the Teachers Council at Spirit Rock Meditation Center, where she offers teachings on Buddhist philosophy, insight meditation, and loving kindness practice. She is also the founder of Lotus Vine Journeys, an organization that blends indigenous healing practices with Buddhist wisdom for transformative retreats in South America. Now, Spring has practiced and studied Buddhist philosophy in both the Theravada and Tibetan schools of Buddhism since 1999. She is also a shamanic practitioner and has studied indigenous healing practices since 2008. Okay, before we dive in, I want to take a moment to let you know about our new free resource, Third Wave's Community. This is a growing network designed to share trusted, research-based content around psychedelics that helps you to feel safe, supported, and empowered as you follow your path towards personal transformation. You can ask questions that you might be otherwise afraid to voice in public and connect with others on a similar journey. You can also join the conversation about each episode on the Psychedelic Podcast. Learn about upcoming online and offline events, retreats, and other opportunities to connect with this broader community. Plus, you can explore our psychedelic guides, our official microdosing course, and an ever-growing library of articles and videos on all things psychedelics. No matter where you are in your journey, you're welcome to join us in Third Wave's community. You can create your account for free at community.thethirdwave.co. That's community.thethirdwave.co. All right, that's it for now. I hope you enjoy my conversation today with Spring Washam. Spring, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
We were just talking about how you're holding down the Buddhist fort here at the Psychedelic Science Conference.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Are there just not many other teachers and practitioners? Has it been pretty sparse on the
Well, there's so many people,
things?
but it's a lot of people are still, I don't want to say in the closet. That's not the right word, but a lot of teachers don't publicly come out and acknowledge that they are working with the plant medicine and how to do it. And it's a movement. It's growing. It's definitely growing, but I think I'm sort of the spokesperson. And I think, in the future, more people will be willing to talk about it without their religious community kind of getting upset or confused.
Tell us what's going on there. Like, what is it? What's the relationship between Buddhism and psychedelics in terms of, just how they view it or how Buddhists view it, how the practitioners view it, what's the perception of it. It's a pretty interesting history,
well,
isn't it?
I definitely cannot speak for all Buddhists, and all the schools and the millions of Buddhists out there, but I can, I can just kind of give you my take on the insight Western community and what's kind of happening in this, world that we're in. And please know, I'm not speaking for everybody, but I can kind of, speak to a few things. There's always been this connection between Zen and psychedelics. And I'm not, I don't come from the Zen school, but I have so much respect and reverence for that tradition. But there's always been that. Zigzag Zen was a book about psychedelics and Zen. And the founder of Spirit Rock, Jack Kornfield, wrote a chapter in that, has written a chapter in Entheogens for a New World, a very small book that circulated years ago. And so there's always been this connection between Zen and, psychedelics and then plant medicine. And I think very broader than that is just the idea that you could develop spiritual insight quicker using these incredible practices. It's like both are technologies, this like Zen practice or mindfulness-based meditation and concentration mixed with this other technology of plant-based medicine or, psychedelics, traditional, maybe LSD or that they go together when held, because as we know, set and setting and intention is everything. And what would happen if we explored that? So I've been exploring that.
You have. And for quite a long time and in quite a very soulful, spiritual, depth-focused way, in particular with ayahuasca.
Yeah, particularly with ayahuasca. I started really working with it in 2007, just personally to treat my own trauma that I wasn't able to address fully in just deep meditation retreats. It's a beautiful container in silence and sitting and stillness and mindfulness and awareness, but there's parts that don't get addressed in that form. It's not the teachings are different than the form. And so in that particular form, there was just parts that I wasn't attending to that were, deeply still experiencing trauma. And so, yes, I started going to the jungle at that time, working with ayahuasca and particularly, and exploring this practice between the two. And I spent years going to the jungle and then coming in doing Vipassana retreats. But this is all very top secret at the time.
You were not telling your community
not
of meditators
really.
that you're going,
No. I think I just told my mentor, which at the time was Jack Kornfield and a couple other people like, hey, I just came from 2 months in the jungle. Now I'm going to sit a month retreat. something's happening here, and I'm blending them, and I'm blending it down there, and I'm blending it here. And yeah, I just started to see tremendous cutting through. And it's just a lot of benefits to my, spiritual practices and faith and all the good things that you want to strengthen or being strengthened.
What is it that ayahuasca helped to clear or integrate that meditation for you? Was it necessarily supporting? Was it something somatic? Was it something like what other pathways did it open up for you that meditation itself couldn't?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, I will say that no psychedelic, no plant medicine will ever liberate you. What I do think these technologies, if I could say that word, or these incredible gifts from Mother Earth, or so many ways to describe these knowledge trees and ways of doing things, is that what it did was it really just cleared the obstacles. Right. I have to walk the path. I have to get up every day and live my life with integrity, with love, with compassion and awareness, and make choices of freedom or choices of suffering. And what these plants and medicines, sacred medicines, entheogens helped me to do was to just clear the tangles, the big monster ones that I would have cleared, but God knows it would have taken a long time, right? Family, DNA, oh my God, abuse and trauma and the things that we get stuck on, which a lot is our trauma. We get stuck on that and we can't practice, or we get derailed, or we get pulled into these other head spaces and patterns, and we can take a shortcut, not an easy cut, but a shortcut. So basically, and that's really important, let me say that again, not an easy, but a bit shorter.
Ayahuasca isn't easy?
No. People sometimes want it to be kind of like smoking a joint or something. It's like,
it's not like that.
Not exactly, but it is, but neither is years of suffering. Right. So when you look at that, so I think what the plants did was it just helped me open my heart faster. It helped me to see interconnectedness. It helped me to see innate wisdom. It helped me to understand things that before had been more intellectual. And then it helped me to move energies deeply out of my body, somatically, movement, energy, flow, all of these different things. So it really continues to be just such a great helper on this long, long journey that we are moving toward for freedom.
Liberation.
Yes, liberation.
Yeah, there's a way that plant medicine, psychedelics, they condense time. Right?
Absolutely.
And so there's this it was a Gabor Mate phrase, and it's a I would say now becoming somewhat controversial phrase, but he would say it's like 10 years of therapy in one session. And there's a lot of nuance to that. And what that speaks to is because of the potency of what plant medicines weave in, you really need a really structured container, really good support, right? Prep and integration, great facilitators. That all makes a big difference if the medicine is, that potent, because you're going, like you said, deep into subconscious and unconscious material that even with a deep meditative practice may not have been available or aware of. And that can be challenging sometimes to confront all these aspects of self through psychedelics, and even a unique intelligence, because ayahuasca in itself, it's not just a thing we're consuming, right? It's a symbiosis that's occurring.
Right. We're interacting.
Right.
Yeah, with the doctor. Yeah,
right.
Spirit doctor.
Right. What for you, as a teacher at Spirit Rock, and someone who's very, let's say, out of the closet when it comes to your active psychedelic use, what have been, I would say, some of the more beautiful or uplifting aspects of holding those two pillars as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a retreat leader? What do you love about weaving those two worlds together?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I think they really do complement each other so well. They need each other. I felt like with the position of being a meditation teacher and sitting in the meditation seat, that, we're teaching these practices of mindfulness. We're teaching all these different meditative tools. We're teaching, ways of thinking and that are aligned with Buddha Dharma. And I think what's so powerful is that to utilize the technology of the plant medicine world, to utilize the power, to harness it in the direction of goodness. I mean, that's what we are, ultimately the Buddhist philosophy is, do no harm, right? And liberate for the benefit of others. And then, serve and help. You're a helper spirit. You're a bodhisattva. You care. And I think this is the idea of the medicine path is it just moves you so much faster in that direction. And it makes sense when you're doing it. You have a path. When I spent years going early days to Iquitos, living outside the upper Amazon, as you live there, I lived at Temple of Light. I lived at ayahuasca center.
Did you ever encounter Isangas?
Isangas?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that. I wish. I didn't encounter very many Buddhist sangas.
Oh, no. They're, no. Isangas are these insects that burrow in your skin. And anyway, that's a bit of a...
That's a side note.
The insects I heard are a little intense.
The insects are intense in Iquitos and all in the jungle, But I think that one of the important thing is if you just use the technology without a clear path, you get lost. You can get lost and you can even cause harm to yourself, right? It's kind of like you have this advanced tool, but, I think it's why a lot of people are so scared of AI right now. It's this advanced technology and we're still kindergartners. How do we use this to liberate? How are we going to use it? And I think this is the question of the hour is we're using these spiritual principles. We're using a 2,500-year-old lineage and we're applying it to
with meditation.
With meditation and with teachings on Buddha Dharma and consciousness and awakening in a path. There's a clear path, step by step. There's a path of insight that's very old and people follow that path. Insight is, there's markers, are we understanding impermanence? Are we understanding suffering? Are we understanding egolessness? There's directly, we want to see things in our practice. Like any doctor, we're getting better. We want to is it a little bit better? Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't. But I just think these go so well together. And without having a clear path, I worry that people using this, like atheists or maybe, and I understand there's a lot of atheists that use psychedelics, but they might lose something unless they have some kind of faith, a deeper, something to rely on, whether it's faith in the creator or something.
Or like a sort of opening to mystery or an opening to not knowing or an opening
wonder.
to... Right.
Yeah, there's a danger in kind of just opening to a nihilistic...
The rigidity of reductionism.
Yes, and to science. And, that's been a danger in the Buddhist philosophy is falling into this kind of empty nihilism, non-existence, everything, nothing matters.
Right.
So I think, everything matters and we hold it.
And we
in a
hold
wide way. Mm-hmm.
What's your lineage?
So I'm a mix, like everything in California. I started off with my main teacher was Jack Kornfield. It's Spirit Rock. We come out of the Ajahn Chah Thai forest tradition, mixed with a kind of Burmese.
Thai forest tradition.
Thai forest. His teacher was Ajahn Chah, the great Thai forest master.
From Chiang Mai?
From Chiang Mai, and who was a legend and had grown a huge following, had an awakening at a very young age and lived in the forest. So there's practice centers in Thailand in the path of Ajahn Chah. And that also is mixed with a little bit of a teacher who was Mahasi Sayadaw, which was a Burmese kind of more flavor, and that is more of the concentration. So it's kind of like this Southeast Asian, Thai forest, which is kind of more like Thich Nhat Hanh. It's like live your mindfulness, very open way. We call it the wash the dishes mindfully. And then we have the other side, which is a more concentrated way, feel everything, focus. So it's a sort of a hybrid of that. So I guess that's my first tradition. And then also I got very much into Mahayana and Vajrayana. I took refuge with great Tibetan masters and studied for many years in the Karma Kagyu lineage and Galek lineage. And so I also have this whole like kind of tantric side of my practice. I don't teach so much in there. I practice more, but I teach a lot out of sort of, you could say Theravada school, open way, insight way tradition here, more based in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. What is Jack like as a teacher and as a mentor and supporter, and like what's that relationship been like?
Yeah, well, I met Jack like over 25 years ago. I always feel like he saved me. He's been one of my fiercest protectors. He invited me here. They called him to talk at MAPS. He was going to be in Spain. And then he goes, here you go. Here's your assignment. Speak about all of this, and you know what to say. But Jack's amazing. He's a blender of many things, many schools, of course, deep, deep Dharma, but also psychology and shamanism and relational. And, he's just like this library of wisdom that you just open the book at any chapter and you're like, okay, speak about this, his books he writes, and so much about the heart. So for me, Jack really taught me about more of the heart, the strong heart, the long heart, the steady heart that will not give up. He's very, he's like, we do this forever, and then we do it forever. And then this is not a fad. It's not a self-help moment. This is something we commit to.
It's eternity in some way.
Yes, we commit to transforming our minds, to seeing and experimenting with the Dharma as if it's still alive. You could still smell the bread, in the kitchen. And to have a commitment to keep seeing if it's true, keep practicing, keep looking.
That courage to go inwards, to explore, right? Whether it's through meditation, even, I'm someone who's done psychedelics and plant medicine for 13 years, since 2010. I've had a few challenging experiences, most of the time when it wasn't a well-held container or not totally safe, but the vast majority have been really beautiful. And I've meditated for around the same amount of time, because when I started to work with LSD when I was 19, it opened me up to the potency of meditation. I read Wherever You Go, There You Are by John Kabat-Zinn. And yet the idea of a 10-day Vipassana is way more intimidating than going and sitting in the jungle for 3 weeks with ayahuasca. So just because of the even in dieta, right? You can still, at least the dieta that I recently went on, we could still play music, we could still read a little bit, we could still journal, right? It was only one meal a day. The food was really bland. It was probably 6 hours a day in meditation, but it's a little bit more flexible. And so that, I think, structure, like you were saying, the fact that this has been around for 2,500 years, and what Jack was saying is this isn't a fad. It is the courage of the heart to keep showing up, to do the work now, to face the dragons that we need to face, and to really grow and evolve as a sangha, or as a community, right? That sense of it's not just about me, but we're all in this together, I think is such an important part of both meditation and plant medicine.
Yeah. And, different flavors of teachers, Goenka has this 10-day, really intense, school, and it's like no breaks, and they find you in bow hours.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's like a flavor, right? If you go to Spirit Rock or another place, there's way more space, and there's walking meditation, and there's a yoga class.
Okay. So this feels a lot better, Spring. Yeah.
So it's important to know that teachers teach kind of the same Dharma, just different levels, different octaves. So Spirit Rock, Insight Meditation Society, and there's other centers that just have like a softer, more, like kind of like a holistic approach. And those old school Goenka retreats there's something about it that is, you go beyond what you think you're capable of, and you see something important there. And for some people, they go to many, and then other people, they might try a little bit of a different approach, but it's definitely an experiment.
And as you've gotten deeper into this work, you've opened up these beautiful retreat experiences in Costa Rica.
Yes.
Called Lotus Vine Journeys. And you host them in this, you showed me the video a few weeks ago, this incredible venue in the retreat center in the Osa Peninsula, which until you had shown me that video, I had never heard of, right? I knew about La Fortuna, and I knew about, Nosara and Tamarindo, Guanacaste, even Uvita, the Dominica Valley, but never Osa. So I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about the magic of the Osa Peninsula and the magic of what you're creating with Lotus Vine Journeys, with those ayahuasca retreats.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, when we talk about Costa Rica, I just smile. I just get so happy. And it's not because the physical beauty of the country is astounding. It is the nature, but it's also the fact that it's such a peace-loving country. Care about the environment. They got rid of their military. They closed all the zoos. They let the animals go. They're creating more national parks and more reforestation projects than anywhere in the world. And, their aggressive, eco laws or their environmental protection laws are just some of the most progressive on the planet. They want to save it. They know they're gifted with something. This is the most beautiful country in the world, one of them, just so magical. So the Osa Peninsula is this part of Costa Rica, which is just such an environmentally diverse location. And it's so free of violence. It's been a wild place for years and years, and it's on the ocean. So you have the mountains, and you're surrounded by this incredible Pacific blue water that is just so clean. And all the animals, and we're in this amazing eco lodge built by an incredible visionary who had this idea of bringing people to this land and healing them with love and yoga and food and clean water and the ocean. And I do believe that's where our medicine is. It's the old ways of coming back to the land and living on the land and close to the land and in this beautiful reciprocity, honoring the land and then living sustainably from it. It's like, thank you, Mother Earth. I give to you, you give to me, and we share. We're sharing this experience. So Lotus Vine is blessed to be able to host these 14-day retreats there, because I do believe the nature is the most powerful healing, working with the ayahuasca, the vine that we use at the retreats. But yeah, Lotus Vine Journey started off in 2015 as just somewhere for my Buddhist friends to come. Yeah. It was all small. I didn't want a big thing. It was in Peru at that time. Okay. We were in the jungle in Peru, in Terremoto. And I was like, I need to create something for my Buddhist community. It was just that. That they could explore this in practice. So our retreats, people don't have to be Buddhist. They'll learn about Buddhism and Buddhist psychology and thought, and they'll learn practices and, liberation from that perspective, along with the earth, along with the plant medicine, along with the indigenous Amazonian view of nature. But we're steeped in these two practices, the earth and the plant medicine worlds. And then we have this Buddhist philosophy and the community of practitioners. So it's really sweet. We have like Zen masters and lamas and
That come down
to be in the retreat and just be like, okay, I heard about this. I want to try it.
Yeah.
And I want to do it in this context. And it's an honor, to be able to hold great teachers and just let them meditate in this magical place and explore ayahuasca and then practice. And then just be together, as we strengthen ourselves for this future that feels so uncertain and so tenuous and so volatile and so violent. It's like, oh my God, we've got to help sustain ourselves. So in some way, I feel like these Buddhist retreats give us faith. We renew our faith deeply that there's goodness here and that we can follow a lineage that cares about right action, that cares about compassion, that we are transforming ourselves in the path of this, there's a stream and let's jump in that stream with all of these millions of beings who have practiced this way. So I like to help us strengthen that root, that it's almost like our our footprints are, we're following. And then we, music and dance and yoga and community. So it's all of that. So that is Lotus Vine Journeys. And it's just a unique blend, I can say, but a good blend. And I feel like something I'm going to be talking a lot more about in the future.
And somewhat of a rare blend. This is the first intensive, it's 14 days.
It's 14 days,
so 2-week experience that I have heard of or know of that combines, deep Dharma teachings and practice and meditation with ayahuasca. I've heard of a few others that do Vipassana with low dose 5-MeO DMT, which is quite interesting.
Yes,
but I think yours, my sense is, especially with your experience, your lineage, I even love tracing the lineage conversation because it's like Thai forest monk.
Yeah.
Right. And so now that's becoming weaved in because I believe the same thing as you, that one of the greatest, let's say, utilities of psychedelics is how they reconnect us to nature.
Yes.
And the healing that we experience from that.
Absolutely.
Right. It's like for many of us, it's actually our deepest wound is that disconnection.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to heal that again, in community with plant medicine. We just hosted an intensive at Brave Earth, which I know you've been to as well. And it's in the jungle and it's beautiful gardens and just surrounded by trees. And if we did no medicine at all, that in itself,
just being there heals you.
It's so healing.
In silence, just being there in silence would
listening
be
to
medicine.
The trees and the crickets and the monkeys and the sloths whistle to each other and you have the snake. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And
in a lot of ways, too, it's like so much of the Buddhist tradition utilizes the earth. Rather, it's when Siddhartha was under the Bodhi tree, his final moments, he calls on the earth to help him awaken as his witness, and the earthquakes. And even in Thailand, they would wear their bare feet out on alms round to walk all over. They didn't wear shoes. And also, they used to ordain the trees to keep the Thai government from cutting them. So many of these ancient forests that Jack would tell me about that he practiced in have been cut down. Yeah. So, this way of living where we don't recognize the power of Mother Earth, and this is it. I do believe plant medicine is available to help us connect because you only protect what you love. And if you don't love it, you'll feel bad, but you won't be an active participant in saving it.
Right.
You won't be. You'll mourn, but you won't, have that intense connection. Like you said, this is our wound right now, one of many, but
it's one of the greatest teachings of ayahuasca or wachuma, or even I had this experience with LSD, which is not a typical plant medicine, but there's this deep reverence and respect and love for Mother Nature. And there's, I think, there's an intelligence that, again, we're coming into relationship with, which has certain messages and communication for us about how we take care of all living things and all living beings.
Yeah, psilocybin too. People's most profound journeys with mushrooms are outside sitting with trees and on the earth and earthing. And it's interesting how these plants are arising at a time where we're in an ecological crisis, right? To help us. They are the medicine. We are the medicine. But, we could go a long way on that conversation because I love it.
It's one of, I would say it's one of my frustrations. Even we're here at this MAPS conference, the Psychedelic Science Conference, there's a lot of incredible progress, the medicalization, decriminalization. But one thing that I don't think gets enough attention is, for lack of a better, and taking mushrooms in the woods in ceremony, or drinking ayahuasca in the jungle, and the impact of nature and the environment. And how are we even creating, like, what I think a lot about is, if I had to choose between doing mushrooms in the woods and mushrooms in a very sterile clinic, mushrooms in the woods are going to be way, way healthier. And yet, our medical system is not necessarily set up for that. So that's something I'm often thinking about, is how do we weave nature back in to not only work with psychedelics, but our healthcare system, our political system, our educational system, right? It needs to really be, there needs to be like a reconvening and a healing, with that reconvening.
I mean, for me, it always seemed obvious. And that would be why I would say, no, we're not doing this in labs. We're doing it on the river in the Smoloka. Right. You're going to Hirsha people, Icaros. These are the medicine people. And we're going to lie down and we're going to do it. This to me seemed obvious. Right. But, the Western world, it's still learning. The North needs to learn from the South. Yeah, the North needs to learn from the South American brothers and sisters, and
like de-domesticating and getting out of
decolonizing, remembering that
deindustrializing.
Absolutely, and the danger of when we don't go as deep, and then we're not connected to the true wound here. Right. We're not fixing, but I think it's just one step at a time.
One step at a time.
I think we're here with one. Let's start in the lab. Better than nothing. But of course we know that it has to go way beyond that at some point out on. And that's like how I really connect to also the Tibetan lineage and the Buddhist lineages that are more shamanic, the Mahasiddhas that are lineage out in the caves and on the mountain peaks, and the sort of shapeshifters and Naropa. I mean, we're here with Naropa University having a huge place. Well, Naropa was a mystic out in the woods and living wild, a wild yogin, right? Following his teacher Chalopa around. So this, I feel like it's sprinkling in there, that Buddhism is not a mental exercise. It's an awakening, and often yogis sit on the earth. The earth is, a place that brings you into radical presence. You meditate outside and you're really there. You're going. That's another accelerator. Something about the just realness. It's different than meditating in a really cozy ashram or in a cozy house and a couch.
It's much more wild,
sit on
much
the ground,
more exposed,
and you're going to feel different than when you're in a carpeted room. The farther you get from the earth, the more somehow delusions, layers come in. So I'm with you with just the directness, but people have to work up to that.
Yeah. That's why microdosing is good.
Yeah, they microdose in the office first, and then they're like, okay, and they, a lot of our work is healing the womb between the earth and us as humans walking on it, and to not disconnect. But it's a journey there. But I'm with you with that, brother. I'm like, we need to have a whole section of this just be earthing.
That's it.
And some future venue have, I don't know, be in the forest.
Be in the forest, I don't know if you could fit
in Denver.
11,000 people.
And then it would be a lot of impact, and then everyone would be mad at that impact.
Yeah, there's always, I guess, trade-offs and
all the technology that everyone's utilizing here, But let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. So we've heard, about your story with plant medicine, 2007, a little bit about meditation as well and your lineage there. Where were you born? Where are you from originally?
Yeah, Originally born in Long Beach, California.
Fantastic.
Yep. And
so you've been in California
I've been
your
in
entire
California
life?
my whole life. I've been always coming and going, but it always has been this base, primarily Northern California from the majority of the time, but spent a lot of years in Los Angeles and in urban areas all around California, around LA County for sure.
And what is that? I guess what is living in California, right? A lot of times when we talk about lineage, we talk about a relationship to the land. What is living in California meant to you? Being born here, now living in San Francisco and NorCal. What is your relationship like with the places that you've been born or the places that you've lived?
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that because I'm in the middle of, in just 2 weeks, I'm moving to Georgia to start a church.
What?
An
moving to
ayahuasca
Georgia?
Buddhist church. Yes, I didn't tell you. Maybe I
don't think I know.
forgot.
This is news.
Yes,
This is news for me.
Hot
I think it's
flash
news.
right
Yeah.
off the. So I have been really feeling this land issue. I was just leading a retreat up in Mendocino barefoot. I did a walk barefoot and I was weeping for one foot, which loves California. And California's been my haven. It's where, wherever you go, nobody can discount that California has magic. The people, the energy, the consciousness, the thought, has downsides too, as we know. But it has influenced every aspect of my life. The mountains, the rivers, the communities, the bay, just the bay surrounding Oakland. And, that's been a big part of my life is walking on this earth, this soil, and being a proud Californian. I guess that would be the word for it. And now moving to Georgia and starting something in Atlanta and moving to start a community with a very dear friend of mine who's trained as a Tibetan Lama Rod Owens, and feeling that I'll have a foot in that state and I'll have to get used to that land. And wow, there's a lot because you feel a lot in land, right? And the history in that land and the battles in that land and the songs in that land and the mountains and the rivers there. And I'll have one foot there. So it's been really interesting thinking about land and identity and where we feel at home. So I am doing an experiment and I'm going there primarily to bring plant medicine and
To Georgia.
Yeah, via Denver. I'll do retreats here, but I'm going to start a church of plant medicine
In Atlanta. Wow.
It's always been it's been an evolution with my work with Spirit of Harriet Tubman and the plants themselves, and just the need has arisen now. And you need accessibility. You need to not be in Costa Rica. You need to be closer to the people. Getting to Osa Peninsula is a journey.
Oh my gosh, of all places.
Worth
yeah.
it. It's worth the price of admission, but it's only, not everybody, they can't do that.
You can't even fly. I realized you can't even fly direct from San Francisco to Costa Rica.
No, you have to
go through
stop
Houston
in
or LA.
Texas or another, and then it's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, and so you
And
have
that's
to.
what's beautiful about Colorado now, with it being available and accessible, right? To do medicine here is
community use, and then so that's exciting, and that gives
It's very
people the
exciting.
opportunities to not have to go to South America if they can, but to come and work in, just a couple hour flight and in the U.S. And so
beautiful. Yeah. Congratulations on that. I can't wait.
Well, check back with me in
I wanna check back
6
with you on
months
this.
or a
Yeah,
year, and I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah, I definitely want
But
to check back
I'll
with
always
you
be
on that.
visiting California, though, for
Okay.
sure.
All
It's
right.
my home, and as many places are, and so is Costa Rica.
There's a writer who I've been reading, an author. His name is Stephen Jenkinson. And he wrote a book called Die Wise, which is a lot. He used to work in the palliative care industry. Had a documentary that was done on him called Grief Walker.
Oh, yes. I watched that beautiful film. He's a lovely speaker, too.
Lovely speaker. He has another book that I'm reading through now called, I think, come of age about the importance of elderhood. And the reason I'm bringing him up is because when we're talking about land, what he communicates is that culture comes from land, right? That the rivers and the mountains and the music and the listening and the energy, that culture really comes from land. And that for many of us as people, especially in America, we have been displaced from our land. We are sort of landless, homeless people. And that, we rationalize that by saying like home is where the heart is, but really there's something very real about the home and the where we bury our ancestors and the relationship we have with that. And
absolutely.
And the sort of touching back in, we're talking about deindustrializing, de-domesticating, decolonizing, the touching back into that real culture is, I think, something that we're missing, and that with psychedelics and these churches and different, even land projects, right? You and I probably have heard, I hear like 3 stories a week now, people who want to start a land project in a community.
Totally. It's a collective
so there's like this
dream.
thing that's coming through
Yes.
of like, oh, we really, really want to feel like we have a home.
We want to feel
land.
rooted on land.
Rooted.
And we want to grow our food, and we want to feel sovereign. We want to feel that we're eating quality, that we're drinking the things that, and we're working together in a good way. That's the community comes after that, isn't it? It's like, get the land, ground on the land, then the community comes in, and then we start our food production, and we want to be sustainable and happy, in a different system. And it feels like the land, we can create our own world on land. You can take 100 acres or 500 acres or even 1.
Right.
You can create your own, you can just create anything you want, your own thing, and you can do it with heart. And there's something about having land. It means something.
It means something very deep.
Yeah.
There's something very ancient and primal, and like we want to be in land. We want to be in nature. We want, to have that relationship.
Yeah.
There's something very sustaining,
Yeah, something
about
very
that.
real or grounded.
Yeah.
I think it's this grounding, we live in, whereas everything else feels so impermanent, renting is like here today, gone tomorrow, in and out. But with land, you're generationally, you're looking at passing something on to the future. You're leaving something. So I agree. Everybody has this dream of farming and growing and living and celebrating. It's definitely the dream.
More celebrating.
Right now, I don't hear anything but that these days.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Spirit of Harriet Tubman, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what the Spirit of Harriet Tubman has meant to you. Like what does that look like?
I mean, this is something that I was working on in 2020 that came out of the blue during the most intense racial reckoning that we've had since, I would say, the 60s.
The race riots in Detroit.
Since Dr. King died, I would say that turmoil and the motion, just the raw emotional impact, right, was different even than a couple years ago. That in 2020 summer, May, that portal in there when all these killings, George Floyd's killing. So I was like everybody else. I was in the fetal position, everything, all my retreats, our whole lives just in the wind, right? And we're just floating along on uncertainty. And so Harriet Tubman just started coming to me in very powerful moments, some ceremonial moments, and then out of ceremony, and then kind of the stream of talking and helping me and rescuing me and guiding me. And this conversation with this great ancestor began to form. And I mean, I was so relieved, obviously, if you're Harriet Tubman's holding your hand, guiding you as the great conductor out of suffering. You're like, oh my God, it's Harriet. But this really led me into such a beautiful period of studying her life. Early on, I was asked by my publisher to write a book about her. And then Harriet wanted to write a book and share about her heart. So in some ways, I don't use the word channeled because I feel like channeling connotes like, I'm going to sit down and you're going to ask me a question and I'm going to say, I am Harriet Tubman, like that. It's not really that. It's a deep conversation with this ancestor to help them share their message of hope, liberation and strength for this time that we are going through. Well, it's another big turning here, maybe even a civil war of just ideas of half the U.S. against the other half.
Very divisive.
So painfully divisive around how we live our lives. Just how we relate to human rights, right? It's just a very, very difficult divide right now. And so I feel like Harriet is back as a great spirit to help people. And I think I'm helping to give voice through that, through this book that I published a couple of months ago that came out called The Spirit of Harriet Tubman.
Oh.
Yeah, it's only been a couple of months that book came out.
On Amazon or through
everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yeah, it's my Hay House is my publisher.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And The Spirit of Harriet Tubman, Awakening from the Underground. I could have talked all at MAPS about that, but we just
What did you learn from writing that?
Oh my God, it was just like so epic. It's hard to even put into words in a short conversation. Just the spirit world is real, that they're on our side, that I guess I'd say the Bodhisattva path is so alive. It's so available and we need to understand how to work with the unseen world right now in order to get through this turning, right? Because we're at a kind of a dangerous curve in the road, right? It's like, where are we going, left or right? Are we going to replicate the old destructive ways? It's all there. Or are we really going to make this turn? And it's precarious. It's not certain, right? It's like, wow, we're heading up to the crossroads. And I feel like ancestors of all types, the spirit world, are all great beings. They're all kind of coming right now to try to influence this in a positive direction, to not replicate the suffering you've gone through already. Turn the corner, see the truth. And I just think Harriet's conducting again on the Underground. The Underground Railroad is open. This whole movement is Underground Railroad. All these plant medicine journeys that are happening in garages and basements, and therapists breaking laws. We've been breaking laws consciously. You know, we've been subverting them for the benefit that we know is available. We're subverting federal laws and state mandates and risking ourselves, our reputations, and our own freedom on the behalf of the greater good, that we know that this can be helpful. So in some way, this movement it's moving toward above the ground, but it's still a full operation on the underground.
Yeah, let's not forget that.
There's only a couple states out of 52 that are say, sure, the other 50, there's movement happening all up and down.
But we're not there yet necessarily.
It's the mycelium is moving.
It's growing.
It's growing. And I think at that level, before great change, as in Harriet Tubman's time, there was a backlash for years against slavery. And then it just grew and grew. And the Underground Railroad also was they subverted the law. They refused to participate. And I think that was a long time. And I think this is that too. And then one day, the system collapses that held up the old structure.
And that's what I often anchor in. There's a Buckminster Fuller quote.
Yes.
It basically said, don't, and I'm paraphrasing, but don't bother fixing the obsolete system, the old system.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix that broken system, but really create a new system that makes the old one irrelevant, obsolete, right? So really focus on what is that new paradigm. Exactly.
And we see this new paradigm. We see this all the time in technology when we were updating our apps constantly. Yeah. And then, that one, that is 6 months outdated. It's like a totally different program that's better functioning, less bugs, less, vulnerable, right? Something's vulnerable. So I think that, but it's just hard, because all of us feel this right now. And it's the anxiety and the old. We love it and we hate it and we're confused by it, and we're letting go of ourselves with it.
The major point of transformation.
Yeah, we're letting go of parts of ourselves, our languages, and there's half this country's refusing to change, to, and it's bigger than that, psychological, and there's a lot of pieces. But we know we can't stop. We constantly evolve. God is change.
and psychedelics. And I would even say, you mentioned meditation, 2,500 years. There's been a very clear container and a path towards insight and a lineage. It's like in times of uncertainty and stress and lack of clarity, what I often look to is the past to help us understand how to navigate towards the future. Because in many ways, history repeats itself. And the past, especially these ancient traditions, it's like the more we can weave those into who we're becoming, I think the more stability and safety and structure we offer ourselves as a human species.
Absolutely. And if you think about the last few years, which have been very painful, but very growth oriented, just from the pandemic perspective, where we all had to look at ourselves and deal with ourselves, the two most popular healing modalities have been meditation-focused practices, awareness-based, whether it's yoga, movement. Mindfulness exploded during the pandemic because people realized I'm alone with my head. I got to get a hold of this. And then also the plant medicine. So these two together, consciously, is what excites me. Yeah.
What did you speak at, or I guess you haven't spoke yet because we're recording this on Wednesday and you're speaking tomorrow, but what are you speaking at about here at the MAPS conference? What's the topic? What's the keynote that you're...
The keynote is acceleration of consciousness, Buddhism, and ayahuasca. That's one. So I'm going to tell my own story about how I got into this, where I see the potential of it being used. Is we're talking about all these potentials, community use and clinic use, and how to do this responsibly. So much of MAPS is such great information. This is another piece, like for those who are on a spiritual path who want to use this, how do we do it? And I think it's going to get more clear, and what are the suggested ways. Not a lot of people are talking about this publicly, so I can only offer my perspective. But my hope is that I will garner a wider group of Buddhist support to help us as a bigger community of multiple lineages and languages and East and West bridge this to create a bigger map of consciousness and a new lineage and a new branch. Not a new lineage. It's utilizing the same lineage, but with a branch.
It's almost like a marrying of lineages.
It's so many lineages, but
like bringing together.
But we know Santo Daime is a Catholic Christian-based
syncretic.
Yes,
church.
and they have been wildly successful in their
UDV
church.
As well.
UDV similar. So why not the Buddhist flavor?
That's a great opening.
Yeah. No, I have always been inspired.
That
was exactly why I started Lotus Vine. I thought, well, if UDV and Santo Daime can have it, why can't the Dharma people? I was always so inspired by it.
Yeah, because UDV and Santo Daime, I think, came out of the 1930s when the rubber tappers were in the Amazon, and they had their own traditions, and they, it's like the mestizo sort of population started to work with ayahuasca, and it's 90 years old. So to
absolutely,
and the traditions are interesting because they're very different than the Shipibo,
right? Totally different.
The Shipibo is actually much more, I'm just reflecting kind of, the Shipibo feels much more aligned with the more sort of Buddhist.
Exactly, because the stillness, the concentration, and then the Santo Daime. What's unique is they just have the religion.
Right.
They have the shrines and the songs and the hymns and the prayers. And then the Shipibo, they have that stillness, which is why I so many years collaborated with Shipibos and was deeply drawn to the Shipibo tradition, because it just reminded me, this is practice time. I'm going to sit and listen and be in practice. So there's so much to learn from these different flavors of the medicine. And as it grows, it's meeting this culture with all of its psychological problems. There's psychological streams now. We're using it to do therapy, and all of the psychedelic assisted therapy is kind of a new branch on the tree, right? They don't do that in the jungle, take ayahuasca and do therapy. No. But We do, right? So this is unique to our culture, to our people, to what our people need in North America, and also not just North America, but how people can utilize this medicine with psychological states and suffering, and through that paradigm. So many new things.
So many new things.
Yeah.
So many old things and so many new things.
It's all old, and it's all just packaged in a new way, you know.
It's like the adaptation in modern time, or the adaptation for 2023, or it's like reality and life, just generally life force has a way of being like water, right? Where it can flow with things that need to flow.
Exactly. It needs to flow. We have a mental health crisis of epic proportion.
Right.
And psychedelic assisted therapy is what is needed. Therapies that assist people in getting better with their mind, their mental health. So I don't fight against change, because this is the nature, you know.
You got to surrender.
Totally. It's happening.
It's happening. Yeah. I was with a friend last night, and he said, you should approach life like it's a movie that you're just getting to watch, and you're not trying to direct the movie necessarily, but you're really trying to observe it and be with it and witness it and surrender to it. And that process of watching the experience unfold is where a lot of, I think, gratitude, beauty, bliss, awe is called on or is felt. It's like the ability just to witness the miracle of life as it's unfolding.
And I know that I will always keep coming back also with indigeneity, with the prophecy, the Mayan prophecy of the eagle and the condor. We have a lot to learn from our condor brothers in the South. Their ways, their ceremonies, how they use it to protect it. They came forward with these traditions. They've used these successfully for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So we all have so much to learn, and it's about learning and being equal now, honoring in the North, learning from the South, and the South becoming equal to the North with their modalities. And I love that that's slowly happening more here. It's hard, and people get really upset about that. And I just want to also just mention that, because that's just a constant flow we'll all navigate, is honoring where these plants came from, and then the new versions of where things appear, like, psilocybin use in different ways, and then LSD and all the, MDMA is new. It's not an ancient, but it's a stream of the ancient. It has its, Anyway, I just want to mention that, because these topics always come up in conjunction with, as we create a Buddhist lineage, it's like, what are you doing with the indigenous perspectives? It's just, all we can do is just bow down, honor, and tell the stories where these things come from, and keep honoring, and with the sense of reciprocity.
And keep weaving it,
Keep weaving it.
The creation continues.
Yeah, and we don't even know where this is going. And as we heal, as we embrace the South of ourselves, the condor spirit, we're healing ourselves, that part of ourselves.
Right.
Yeah. So both are true simultaneously. We need each other now to grow.
We need each other.
Yeah.
Spring, thank you for taking some time during this incredible conference to join us for the podcast. Any final thoughts, teachings, words before we close?
No, I'm just so happy that we get to have these conversations, and may they be of benefit to all beings everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey listeners, Paul here. I hope you enjoyed our episode today with Spring. You can continue the conversation with us in Third Wave's community at community.thethirdwave.co. Tell us what you thought of this conversation. Let us know in Third Wave's community. You can sign in and find the Psychedelic Podcast in the menu. Leave us a comment. And while you're at it, check out the rest of this community platform, where you can find support, meaningful discussions, as well as education, resources, and providers across our global ecosystem. Sign up for free at community.thethirdwave.co. Thanks so much for watching. For a deeper dive into the power of microdosing with complementary practice and extra guidance, check out our best-selling microdosing course. It's a science-based protocol with dozens of best practices so you can customize your protocol to your unique needs and goals. Check out the link in the description below.